FYP Production.
She fell in love with the bad guy, but she loves my intentions. Nothing feels better than the moment we're sinning, no. Nothing feels better than the moment we're kissing. I'll say I'll love her for forever, in the morning forget her. She was raised under money, growing up she couldn't see the poor. Save my number in her phone under me or more. Look me in my eyes and ask what I need her for. So in this game of life, she just might keep a score. Darkness is clouding my judgment. Marijuana clouds cause the loud is so pungent. But me, I haven't touched a drug since that trait of white. I live my life before the fight like I'm Dana White. The block is hot like that boy band with Nick Lachey. Hold my heart in your hands like a Fabergé. Precious. You was young, dumb, and reckless. Living like the devil couldn't catch us.
We live? Welcome back. This is the YSO podcast. Well, somebody out. This is the YSO podcast. This is a podcast by the youth, for the youth. And we are back.
We back. Who's that? J. Cole? That's J. Cole. Back in my Muhammad crib. I'm sorry.
We'd like to first and foremost apologize for the tardiness. We usually start at 7 o'clock, but due to some technical know-hows and situationals, we have started later. And with that news comes the further news. Moving forward, we will start at 7:30. So it will still be every other Thursday. You'll still find us live on Facebook and YouTube. But 7:30 will be the start time instead of 7 p.m. That gives our hardworking corporate America people more time to come in from work and get here to the studio. And it just also gives us more time to handle all the technical things. With that being said, thank you for tuning in and being here with us. Like it is You Speak Out podcast. And how y'all feeling? How we feeling today?
It's lit. It's Thursday, Friday Eve. So
We're doing well. doing well.
Living good, feeling better. All the cliche sayings that they say these days.
Right, everything is everything. That's wonderful. That's beautiful. This week, if you've seen the flyers or the adverts, then you know exactly what we're talking about. But if you don't, this week we are diving into relationships and dating. And of course, it is the Youth Speak Out podcast for the youth, by the youth, being the voice of the youth and giving a voice to the youth. So you already know that we are going to be focusing on relationships and dating within our generation. And so before we even hop into it, we want to quickly promo and let you all know, if you forgot, we still got the YSO merch. And Andrew, give them a peek because you know whose shirt is visible. Okay, there we go. We still got the YSO merch going crazy, you know what I mean? So
link in bio.
Right.
It better be.
Regardless whether it is or isn't, you can find us wherever you find the YSO podcast and put in your order, you know what I mean? Because everybody wants some YSO merch for the perch.
Just send us a DM.
Facts.
My man will get back to you.
Indeed, our people will contact your people. But like I said, we diving in, we doing relationships and dating. And so I want to jump off the porch. I already got a question. And I want to jump straight off the porch because the people don't want no games. They want us to give it to them raw. That's what we know for here at YSO Podcast. We off the cuff and we keep it real. And this is, we open forum. So straight up, I want to dive into a very important factor. And this has got a lot of layers because, of course, we are youth. We are, human beings. We all young and black, but we also all Christian. So I got to, ask and wonder, what is the role, or what is the desired role, or just, speak towards, I guess, the role, and when it comes to our generation, of physical intimacy and how exactly you traverse that territory in your own personal endeavors.
You used a lot of big words. So I don't know what.
Oh, you want me to break it down? Oh, okay. I can go simpler. I can go simpler. Hey, no. Hey, what type of nookie are you going for cookie? Okay. Now, yeah, you know what I mean, is when it comes to relationships and dating for you, and also speak towards our generation as a whole, what role does sex or lack of sex or whatever the case may be play? Let's jump in that water. Let's jump in that water. Let's jump in that water.
I would just say, as far as young people nowadays, it presents a veil of confusion. That's really what it does. Like, I know that if I don't want to deal with somebody, I'm not going to deal with them. But some people might not want to deal with somebody, but will stay because they can satisfy them sexually. I heard somewhere, I don't know if this is a scientific fact, but I read an article and it basically said, if for women at least, if one person can make a woman ejaculate 3 times, then subconsciously she becomes sexually addicted to that person.
Okay.
I'm not saying like 3 times back to back. I just think the number is 3 periods. I think, I don't know. That's what.
I mean, women ain't orgasming these days, so
It's very possible.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we was keeping it G real.
He's right, because men ain't paying attention to their own thing. They come in there.
There you go.
They come get off and dip. But yeah, I feel like for a lot of young people, it does provide an area of confusion, because then there are feelings that get mixed up.
Absolutely.
Like
soul ties.
That
Soul
too.
ties are so real.
Definitely. We don't want to get too deep, but
Right,
you know what I mean?
We here now. Let's go ahead and dive to the the Olympic diving pool.
Yeah, I feel like the role that it plays, at least for young people, it just aids in the confusion and the toxicity.
Not the STD, but AIDS, as in aiding and abetting.
Thank you for that clarification.
Facts. I didn't even realize. I was like, I said STD.
Christian giving us clarity at all moments.
But to answer the question, I think that it presents an issue, because if, like, say you're attracted to someone and they don't have the same belief or morals that you do, and that's one of the things that they want to do, but you might not necessarily want to do, it's like it poses an issue. So now it's like, well, do I try to stay with this person and work it out, or do I just, say forget about it?
Say forget about it. No, man.
Yeah. Because when you try to, like, that's like we stated earlier, like the soul ties, and then you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're getting addicted to something and that's harmful to you, or you stay in a toxic situation because you're addicted to something, or it's really a lot that brings into a potential dating or a potential relationship. And then, like, say if you do it and then you try to stop and take it out, and then like you figure out, like, maybe I didn't like this person, or maybe this person didn't like me, and so it's really a lot. It's really a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Ashley, why don't you give us a peek into a woman's mind? You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess it's, at least I think now women in general are very much in a space of like their whole like sexual liberation and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
It's great for them. Like, do whatever makes you happy. I applaud that.
Why So Podcast supports you?
But I think some people may just jump into it too fast. I think there's a lot of lust in the world, and it's really easy to get caught up in that. I could say just like, don't let it cloud your judgment of that person. I think it's really hard for people to separate the physical from the emotional, and that's why they end up in these like really toxic relationships, because they're so focused on how good the physical intimacy is, and they just kind of let everything else go to the wayside, because they can fight and beat each other up all day, but when they have that makeup sex, it's right back to the beginning. So personally, that's not the route that I would take.
Absolutely.
Sometimes even if I know I physically want to, I'll just say no, just to see how they're gonna react, because it filters out a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Real quick.
Might be somebody you thought. And then you see
if they have a bad reaction, I'm like, ooh,
because consent
it's
matters.
bad.
Just tell them no once and just watch how they treat.
Exactly. You just gotta tell them no one time and see how they react.
Yeah, and that's a fact. I mean, I asked it, so
let me ask a question. Why is sex such a big part of young people's dating situations?
Perfect. I want it perfect.
We can definitely. I was definitely.
And let me add to that. Do young people feel that if you are a Christian, that your body belongs to the Lord, and that you should not be engaging in premarital sex?
Not just sex, but sexual morality.
Okay, well, I personally feel that it's such ingrained in the young people's minds because of what we watch. I noticed recently the way that they portray teens on TV is not how teens really live. Like, it has become that because of us seeing it over and over and over and over, and it's like, okay, subconsciously we want to do the things that we see on TV, like we see our favorite characters do. It's like all they show is the drug use, the illegal activities, the sex, and it's like, bruh, this is not high school. My high school was not like this. It was sort of like this, but it wasn't like it wasn't like that. You know what I mean?
I want to. But before I dive into my answer to my mom's question, I want to speak to your point when it comes to the representation in media, because I think specifically speaking towards TV shows, right? We can all think of, the shows that come to our mind when you talked about what you talked about. I think it started from a particular niche, right? Like back when we were younger, you had Skins and you had Degrassi, but they were targeting a specific niche because there are some people whose high school and middle school existence really does look and reflect like that. And they could finally feel like, oh, I can watch a show that reflects what my high school is and isn't Life with Derek or Sweet Life with Derek. That wasn't how it was popping out for me. We was popping out different. That niche then grew to people who didn't have that experience, but were enthralled by it on television. Now you fast forward, we got more access now to everything. I can call, there's someone in my phone number to get me to anything on the planet. Dark web homies, cocaine homies, weed homies, pills homies, women homies, weapons homies. Like you can, you know what I mean? We got access to everything. So now, not only did it become a matter of I could see this on TV in a film or in a television show, now I can reflect that in life. And I do think now those shows, though it's like an over sexualization and an over fascination with some of these aspects, it is starting to, the way it works with all art, either art tells life what to do or life tells art what to do, but they're always reflecting each other. So I think that's what that speaks to a little bit. To answer my mom's question, you know what I mean, about sex being ingrained, I don't want to be that person, but I'm about to be that person. Sex has been probably the number one motivating factor of life since the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since the food was eaten and they realized, oh,
What it was.
Yeah. You got that?
you got a part and I got a part. And it was like, my part, go ahead. Hold up. You know what I mean? And what they want, what the minority say they want. But it's ever since then, and I think the number one thing that probably harms each rising generation is the generation before it acting like sex didn't exist until it was time. I'm not going to speak to no particular, you know what I mean? Because like, especially as Christians, we believe in no premarital sex and no shacking up, yada, yada, yada. There's these factors, there's that factor. But I can speak to just us as a generation being raised by people who had kids before being married or had us before being married, telling us to, like, look, their exact parents telling them, don't you never dem dum do-ba-da. Well, you was never dem dum do-ba-da. And clearly it was a situation because we here. And this is in no way like trying to shift blame to older generations. I think it's just as ingrained in our culture and society as it's always been. I think the difference is we are the generation that's in front of everyone. Yeah. You could live your life as a teenager back in your day, and the people that knew you was the people that knew you. There are people that I've never seen in life that know me,
because they follow me on Twitter or Instagram, or think they, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
They have that. There are people who don't know me that believe I'm, this or that, or know if I'm in a relationship or if I'm doing this, or he was at the function on Friday, or whatever the case may be. We are the first generation, because of social media, because of the mass media in general, because of this, us really also being the first generation to have a massive wave of youth celebrities, just where it's a generational thing. We're in front of the world. So now all of the same things that people was doing at the same times in the same ages before us, we doing, because we learning in the same ways they was, is people that did it but try to either hide it or be a hypocrite about it, telling us not to do it, so then we sneak and do it, and we learn from our mistakes, because that's just how it's been for generation after generation. The only difference is you get to watch me do it on the grandest stage of them all, your phone or your laptop. So I don't necessarily want to, like I said, it's in no way me saying that sex isn't deeply ingrained in us as a generation. It is. But I think it massively has to do with the human innate desire for love, and sex and love being very confused with one another. But I also think it has a lot to do with the fact that somebody's got to be the ones to sit down and really have real conversations with the upcoming generation, and not just, you know what I mean?
Don't be a hoe.
Right. Or
just don't have sex.
But why?
Don't bring no kids about.
You know what I mean?
I don't think, like, now that you say that, I'm thinking, like, I don't even think that my parents and I had, like, the sex talk.
Man, no.
I had one, and I had to make it happen.
Yeah.
I literally looked in her eyes and I was like, so when are we going to talk about sex? And then she was like, well, what do you know? And at the time, I just know the street terms. So then she just taught me that, like, cum is ejaculation. And I was like, oh, cool.
And I think that if a lot more parents actually sat down and talked with their kids about sex, then they wouldn't go to other outlets trying to figure out what it is. Okay, that's one side of it. But you get to know about sex, even if you feel like you haven't had that sit down talk, at some point in time, it's discussed. And
not always.
No, it's not.
That's kidding.
That's what I said. The first conversation I ever had about sex was me and my homies talking about sex.
Yeah. Okay.
None of us had sex. None of us was near sex. We was just talking about sex, and none of us knew what the heck we was talking about.
Exactly.
Then we started watching porn.
That's another.
I thought we keeping it real.
That is another.
And then the image of sex became porn, which is it's not what sex is. And so then by the time we're having sex ed or the talk with our parents or experiencing it ourselves, we've already been exposed to it 3, 4, 5 times over, but the exposition was incorrect or was faulty or wasn't the exposition we should have had or deserved. If we keeping it 100, I know people who never knew anything about sex outside of what they might have saw in a movie or a TV show till they got to college. Wow. They never had proper sex ed because they went to school in probably like a small district or small county or something, and their parents never talked to them about it, and they never had it. So they didn't even know sex for real. I'm sorry, and I think a lot of parenting has been a lot of, if we act like something doesn't exist, my kid can't get into it. And that's not real.
Wrong mindset.
I think the opposite needs to be done in most cases, where you need to have a serious conversation, and a conversation that so many times, not just about sex and things in general, when parents, and I'm like just speaking from a generational standpoint, sit us down to have a talk that should be heavy or serious. They expect vulnerability, but don't have that transparency and vulnerability with us. I remember I'm speaking for a homie now. One of my homies was sitting down, and his mom was giving him the sex talk, and she asked him if he had ever had sex, and he said no, and he had at this point. He was like 17 at the point. And then he asked her when she lost her virginity, and she straight up lied and was like, when I got married to your dad. Which was a lie. It was a stone cold lie, which he was able to find out through facts later. And then he was like, then she found out that he lied, and he was like, well, you lied. Like, we was lying to each other. Like, if we gonna kick it real, we gotta kick it real for real. I feel
like parents now, especially because our parents are from an older generation. I have friends that have parents from a different generation.
Right.
Yeah. Parents are 30, 40. You know what I'm saying? Might have had them young. So they talk to them completely different than what our parents talk to us. And it just shows you, like, I'm gonna be honest, one of my friends, his mom talks to him like some random dude on the street. Like, cusses at him, like says that she can get upset. Like the way she treats him, it would be like as if she didn't know him.
Right.
But that's her son. You know what I'm saying? It's like the way I feel like our parents parenting us is reminiscent of whatever they learned from their parents. Mm-hmm. So their parents, especially back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, were teaching them off of survival. Like they're teaching them how to survive in the world that they're in. We no longer need to be teaching our kids how to survive. We need to be teaching them how to thrive. Mm-hmm. We need to be teaching them, like, look, when I was younger, I did this, and this, and this, and this happened because of it. Mm-hmm. So if you're able to sit your child down and be transparent with them, like, I think parents want to make it seem like they're not bad people to their kids. Right. It took me to being 22 to realize, oh yeah, my parents are people. Like they have, they are people. Right. They're humans who have emotions and have had experiences.
Right. Made mistakes
and the issues. And not saying that my parents had issues, you know what I'm saying? But everybody has their flaws that they learn. You know what I'm saying? It's those types of things that I had a hard conversation with my mom. I told her, I honestly don't like talking to you about things because I feel like you never listen to me. You only hear me. You just hear me so you can say whatever you want to say and then cut me off. Now I have to figure out where I was in my thought. It's like you never just let me speak. You're always trying to teach me, but never let me speak. So like, how can I learn if you're not even catching the full picture? If you're not hearing your people. Like we'll have conversations where she'll cut me off in the middle of what I'm saying, and then she's telling me that she doesn't get what I'm saying, but I'm like, you just cut me off. So how can you get the full picture if I'm not talking right now and I'm listening to you? But it's like they see us as their children. And it's like, yeah, I am your child, and you are supposed to bring me up in the world, for sure. But meet me somewhere so we can get past what we're doing.
Because a lot of parents who are older come from that generation of
we're supposed to be seen, not heard.
Seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. And it really takes and I don't think there's any parent's desire to not hear their children. But it really takes I think that the more you go through with your children, the more you're apt to have that more of a dialogue. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think you should necessarily have to go through
something. But right. Honestly, that helps you to be able to be more open, to be able to understand that yes, they're your children, but in today's time, we have to be able to hear them as well as teach them. Right. But what the problem happens is when your generation doesn't allow us to continue teaching you. It's like you guys want to turn around and think that you have to teach us. And yes, we definitely can learn from you guys because you're more technological age. There's a lot of things that you have knowledge of that we may not know. When we went through COVID-19, young people was teaching the older people how to use social media and how to use Zoom and Google Meets. And they don't know how to do all of that, a lot of them. So there's a definite transference of knowledge and information that can be shared. But I do believe that young people need to be heard. And this is one of the reasons why we have this platform. Because I do believe that I used to be like, God, y'all are just so abrasive and y'all just so, just no filter and just say anything you want to say. But I had to learn that this is the mindset, not the mindset, but this is what's inbred in this new generation because you're very expressive and a lot of that talent and knowledge and stuff that you have acquired very, very, very early. It took us so many years to get to that place. So I think that quick-wittedness and the fact that y'all always got to come back and stuff like that, it puts a lot of adults off. Huh?
That's Twitter. That's Twitter training right there. That's all that is.
It's put a lot of adults off, and they're not able to meet you at that place. It takes a retraining for people who've come up in a different generation.
Right. I agree, and I definitely feel like I think for a long time,
Sorry, we have a 10-year-old and a
3.
We have a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old in the credit. So
Yeah.
you might get some crashes from time to time.
To speak to like what you said about like so many, not just your generation, but so many generations were taught under that be seen, not heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that speaks a lot. I'm about to speak to that. I think it speaks a lot to what you were saying about being taught to survive. Because if I'm being honest, that's a very Black thing. I think it stems from slavery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where we were to be seen, not heard.
Right.
And I think
Shivers.
like that just stayed and stay in a child's place, be quiet when grown folks is talking. All of these different versions of these Black proverbs that all really just lead to you do not have a voice in my home. But what a child, like when you hear that, what that means to you is you do not have an identity. You are not a person. You do not deserve respect or love or care or attention. That's how that like gets translated and heard and felt. And then that's how people begin to operate in their life. Then they get older and they teach their kids the same thing and they teach their kids the same thing. And it continues on for generations until you have one group of people where, if we're being honest, it has to do a lot with technology and social media, where we realize I am a person. I have a voice. I have complex experiences and emotions, and I go through things and this and the that and the third. And just because I'm a kid or young, or you are supposed to be the person to guide me, take care of me, and teach me, doesn't mean that should subjugate my humanity. And if I'm being honest, and this is in no way trying to attack older generations, I think a lot of the raising of children was subjugate their humanity until they're an adult, then they can be a full human.
Right. You can do whatever you want when you 18 and move out.
Like
you're in my house.
That's why you see a lot of
That
times,
is true.
like people in our generation, they want to leave their parents' house.
Really?
Financial stable or not, because they're
They want to be
just,
free.
yeah. And I like what Miss Donna said. She had to learn to listen more as a parent. I'm sure you did, especially dealing with Hannah.
Where Hannah at going? Tell Hannah what to do.
Anybody who knows Hannah loves Hannah.
Exactly.
Nobody just holding back.
But Miss Linda Platt said that some parents don't know how to talk to their kids about sex, and I agree.
So teach them. How do you teach them?
Easily.
Well, hold on. I think that may be rooted in the problem what you just said. How do you teach them? I think the sex talk needs to be a conversation.
Yeah.
And yes, like at the end of it, your child should learn, right? But I think it should be a time where you and your child have open dialogue, where you, in some ways, look at questions. Right. You answer their questions, but you don't treat it like teacher student. You treat it like almost like a peer who just doesn't know a certain area. You know what I mean? Like, oh, if Christian don't know how to glass blow, and I do, and I'm putting him on how to glass blow, I can do that without treating him like he's my pupil.
Right.
You don't know glass blow? It's how they make.
That's how they make rolls.
Oh, when they roll it.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that's what it's called.
Yeah, it's called glass blow. But like, and I'm not, like I said, I believe that there should be like some teaching moments in that, and your child should learn by the end of it. But it's also like, sometimes you really got to look at it, right? Like, there are parents who are attempting to teach their kids in an area they shouldn't be teaching. Like on a personal level, like you're going to come in to teach me about something where you don't really have but if we sit down and have a dialogue and you're not treating me like a person who needs to learn a lesson by the end of this conversation, but rather an exchange of thoughts and information, I think it gets a lot further and probably puts your children in a lot better predicament. And I want to say that I believe that if more transparent and more often sex talks are happening earlier between parents and children, it'll definitely like deter certain like instances of sex. But I'm not saying, oh, if you talk to your kids about sex, they won't have sex. That's a lie. They gonna do what they want to do. First of all, okay, people is out here looking good.
number one.
Okay, and really that's all it needs. That's the only factor you need. Okay.
Okay. Going around like,
You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Oh,
So
so don't let them be off the courage.
man, flights is $80.
we don't even get it.
Yeah, that's all.
That's all. But you know what I'm saying? But I do think that what it could lead to is your child having a healthier relationship with sex.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always mean not having sex.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing. And that's a difficult one for us as Christians because we want to make sure that we want to implement to our kids to, of course, not sin. So, of course, we're like, no
But you know,
premarital
sex isn't bad. Like God ordained
Yes.
Within the confines of marriage.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I think a lot of times parents they preach that sex is bad, don't do it. You'll have kids. You gotta do it. But
Some people say you'll die. One of my friends told me that her mother told her, "Don't have sex because you'll get pregnant and die." That stopped her from having sex for so long.
But I bet
Once
you
she
when she
realized
did,
lied.
she didn't have a health. She didn't take out a healthy relationship with sex.
She didn't, yeah.
Because
Once she found out that she lied, she just started having a lot of sex. She ended up getting pregnant. But that was a result of her living her life thinking, oh, if I do this, I'm gonna die. And now you lied to me about that. You told me I'm gonna die because that's what people say.
But a lot of parents, it's not that explicit, but I'm gonna be honest. Both of my parents, and this is in no way to like throw any shots at y'all, but whenever sex is the topic, one of the first things y'all bring up is STDs. Yes, that's important because I should know about the risk and all of that. Absolutely. But what I heard about STDs before I heard about condoms, which is the thing that helps prevent STDs. You see how that don't add up? You're programming fear. Right, but programming fear is not the method to do that.
That's selfish. That's
And not only is it hypocritical, yes it is, but not only is it hypocritical, programming fear is not the method to keep somebody away from something.
Okay, wait.
If it was, no one would commit crime. Nobody likes jail.
You said that's not hypocritical?
No, it's not.
How on earth is that not hypocritical?
How is it hypocritical?
If
You're telling me not to do something that your mother did, that your sister did, like
Because we see the error of our way and we try to keep
Don't just say don't do it.
Exactly.
That's what I said. No. That's what I said earlier.
You said
Our parents try to make it seem like they've never done anything bad.
Right.
So of course we're going to listen to everything you say because we don't think you've ever done anything bad. If you come out as a person, because everybody has sinned, fall short of glory to God, you finna tell me that you can't tell me you did this, so this is why you shouldn't do it. If I promise you, if any of the mistakes I've ever made, if any of my parents came to me with an experience from their life and told me I did that one time and it led to this, that would lead me not to do it anymore because not only have they given me a visual, okay, they've been through some things. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, now I have a basis of what I can do. You see what I'm saying? When you sit here and hide that aspect of your life, but tell me not to do this, this, and this, once I figure out that you have done it, I look at you differently.
Now I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I look at you differently because I was like, oh, you told me not to do this because and I really didn't because I thought you did, but you did.
and beyond, that's a huge factor. But like I said, even beyond it being hypocritical, it lends itself to if your method of keeping your child from doing something, we could take this from sex and put it to anything, drugs, crime, messing up in school. It can apply it to any aspect that's important in parenting, right? If your method of keeping your child away from that is to load their mind with fear and front load their mind with them to fear that experience or fear the consequence of that experience, rather than to have knowledge, information, and understanding of it, at some point, your child through some method, whether it be through your own exposition, meaning like they finding out the truth about you or whatever, or through some other cascade in life, your child will then be exposed to information that deletes that fear. And once that fear is gone, they will hop 10 toes, dumpster dive into whatever you was trying to keep them away from. And rather than now you stay them away from that long term, you stay them away from it for a period. But now when they get involved, they're getting involved in unhealthy, and it's unhealthy. Exactly. If I know about sex, if I have the information, if I understand experiences, if we have real serious conversations, vulnerable conversations, and I can actually have understanding about it, then whenever I choose to have it be a factor in my life, I can do so healthily, which should be more important to a parent than just making sure that they don't. Absolutely, we want to make sure our kids don't make the mistakes we made, don't do the things that they shouldn't do, X, Y, and Z. But it should be more important that whenever that element enters your child's life, or the potential for that element to, that they know how to healthily traverse that environment or situation. And majority of us don't. Before I ever talked to my parents about drugs, I'd seen bricks in my face. If I wanted to pop out and be a cokehead, you would have been too late to stop me. Because we never talked about what to do when homie hands you a rolled up dollar bill and says, you want to hit.
Oh, please, we have talked about drugs.
Not before I was exposed to drugs.
Listen, I didn't know there's some of the things that you're telling me at such a
That's my point is, whatever year you was exposed to something, subtract 4 or 5 from it, and that's the potential, because we only get more access as time goes on. And okay, of course, you guys couldn't predict this big because the technology jumping between the 90s to now is astronomical. It's millenniums worth. But oh dang, I had a great sense. Oh, but one, not only is it about being ahead of the gate, which means earlier than you think you need to have those talks, you need to be having them. But even beyond that, it's also about knowing that when you have them, you gotta have a real deal, honest conversation. I already have, like, let's look at drugs for an example, right? Because we've been talking about sex for a while. I know, but I'm just using this to talk about the parenting example. Yeah, we gonna get it. I'm using this to talk about the parenting example, right? You have so much, or as a matter of fact, let's use sex, right? Sex ed, right? Sex ed, you know what we learn in sex ed? We learn all of the STIs, all of their symptoms, how you can contract them, and then we learn that a condom can stop them. That's it. They don't teach us consent. And depending on where you go, they might teach abstinence, right?
We learned about the body parts.
Yeah, we learned about.
Oh yeah, and
they gave the girls tampons.
They ain't give out no resources.
Yeah, I think so. If anybody watching the Fire Force Middle School, let me know, because that's what we learned.
You had sex in middle school?
Yeah.
I had sex in 9th grade.
We had to,
that's
my dad had to sign a little waiver form, and I remember vividly he told me, don't be laughing like a little girl. I'm like, what does that even mean? What am I about to learn that I'm gonna be laughing like a little girl? But anyway.
But yeah, like, you know what I mean? We have all of these areas in life already.
None of us are parents, no. We act like parents, but we're not.
Oh, no, yeah. Almost.
I want to read a comment that was made in early school when you guys were talking about some things. He said, if you're an adult, then you can do things because you are. If you're an adult, you can do adult things because there are consequences for your actions. It's when y'all was talking about adults and child and the relationship and stuff like that, and talking about sex. He's saying that when you're an adult, you can do adult things.
So he's saying sex is an adult thing?
That's a reference to the fact that young children should not be having sex.
But
but they have. That's the problem right there.
You know what's happening? You're entering into areas that you're not emotionally And
Yes, because nobody's preparing us.
Exactly.
No, that's exactly what we're saying. That's exactly what we're saying. We get into it. No, that's exactly what we're saying.
Jewish. Wait. Let me say one thing. Jewish boys and girls at the age of 13 are seen as adults. You start having your hormonal changes at the age of 13 and 12.
Sometimes
In
early.
the Jewish community, you are an adult at that age. So how can you sit here and say adult things when in all the cultures, 12, 13, whenever you have your bar mitzvah or whatever they call it for the young lady, you're an adult. Like, you're an adult. You're expected to know the Torah. You're expected to work in the synagogue. You're an adult just like everybody else. So how can you sit here and say, oh, adult things are for adult things are for adult people?
And beyond that, real quick, actually, because I mean, beyond that, just to speak to, you said that there are consequences to those actions. Those consequences don't delete if you're a kid. And
Right.
Just like an adult can have sex and get an STI or pregnant or have soul ties, so can we as kids. So if we can do the same thing physically and have the same results physically, then we should be given the information and have these conversations so that we are, because you're right, we are entering them not emotionally, mentally, and physically ready. But nobody's kicking it to us real. They're pumping us full of fear or hiding it behind closed doors or treating it like it's taboo. So then all we have is all of the other ways we exposed to it, or we operate out of those fears and avoid it until we finally find out some other tip, then we break loose and go crazy. That's why so many kids, when they get to college, go stupid with sex. Because sex was treated like this thing that was oppressed against in their home, rather than something that they were taught about and taught. Like, if you really kick it real to your child, majority of them are going to be like, I think I can wait for that.
Right.
And the ones that's not, at least when they start, they're going to do it healthily.
Hold on, we have a call coming in.
Yeah, Ashton,
Okay,
speak.
yes, I was gonna say, I don't think it's fair to say
Can you call again, Ernest?
it's just
Call
an
again.
adult thing because
Please don't.
so much of the sexual liberation and
Where's he
morality, all this
coming
stuff going on now, from me viewing just my friends and people that I know, is because they got exposed to sex at a very young age involuntarily. They were raped,
Let's talk about that
molested,
too.
or sexually assaulted. And there are a lot of women who react, and men who react adversely, and they don't just shell into themselves and say they don't want anybody to touch them. They do the opposite. And they start having sex with a bunch, and they seek that because that was the only validation that they got as a child.
That was good.
So talk to your children, because I guarantee you there are so many parents who have no idea what their kids have been through and why they're acting the way that they do.
Okay, and then to piggyback. Hold on. Welcome, caller. Good evening. How are you? Tell us your name and where you're calling in from. All right, go ahead. What is it that you want to share with us tonight? Welcome to the YSO You Speak Out podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I agree with the young people, right? But they have to look at it from a different perspective. And when I say adults doing adult things, that's exactly what I mean. Children, I never said age. I never brought up age. I never talked about the Torah and bar mitzvahs and all. When you become an adult, you do adult things. The Bible says that when you're a child, you do childish things. When you're an adult, you put those childish things aside. Something similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
My whole point is, if you have a child at 13 or 14, hey, that's great. Can you take care of that child at 12, 13, or 14? That is the question that I'm posing to the young folks. And the second part, yes, I agree with saying you should have these conversations with our children.
Mm-hmm.
Starting at 10. I totally agree. We're going to throw an age in. Let's throw in 10. Because where else are they going to learn? The street. I'd rather them learn from a parent or someone who's responsible for their actions than just going out there doing it all willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the consequences to that. Not the consequences. Here's the antithesis to that, right? What we have is baby mamas and baby daddies who aren't taking care of their children. all because of the urge. We have to learn, even as older adults. Remember, I haven't put an age on when they should have. But as adults, you have to control yourself. You can't go out there and in their language smash everything that's available. It doesn't work that way. So sometimes you have to be intelligent. Sometimes you have to think. Sometimes you have to court. Sometimes you have to understand who you're swapping spirits with.
Well,
and these are the things that aren't talked about when we're talking to our children. Now, let's take it back to when I was a kid, and I know people have changed. Time hasn't changed. People have changed. When I was a child and I wanted to get my ear pierced, my mom said, you can't get your ear pierced in my house because you would be an adult. And if you're an adult, you can't live in my house. So two adults who aren't sleeping together should not be cohabitating.
wow.
Time with millennials and Generation Z's and all this other stuff, there's a different mindset, and I get that. But when you're in my house, you do as I say.
And let me, can I stop him right there? Can I stop him right there, please?
Hold on.
Please let me stop him right quick. Please, I am being respectful, but he's talking a long time, and I don't even know if they can hear him on the computer. But I do, because he's jumping around a lot, and for the most part, he's saying he agrees, but then he's saying buts. And once you say but, that kind of negates whatever you say after that. You literally just said something Emmanuel said earlier. Excuse me, Ernest, I just want to say something. Something Emmanuel said earlier. We kind of have the way that children are supposed to be heard and not seen. That kind of stems from slavery. Something else that you just said, I feel like that encompasses a good amount of things. Remember how the other day we was talking about why do Black people seem to have the whole, especially we all have the same life. Like we're not a monolith, but we all have lived a similar life. It's because 400 years of it was there. And he literally just said, you live in my house. So yes, you're gonna do what I say, of course. If I want to live in, if there's a house that I live in, that the rules I follow because I do want to stay there. But at the same time, I have broken rules in the house that I live in, specifically because of that statement. They don't tell me why. But I should wait. They don't wait. Yes, can you listen though? Can you listen? There's a reason for the rebellion. They don't tell me why. They just tell me because I said so. Who are you to be the end all be all? You are the owner of this house, but yes, but I am your child. I am not a possession. I am a child.
Hold on, Drew.
But you have to also understand that as a child, you do not have equal say to your
Nobody's saying that.
That's not what I'm saying.
Listen,
That's what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying.
But listen, let me say this, right? Let me say this. I'm gonna kick it real. No. Listen. I'm gonna kick it real, and because I'm gonna just use us because we're in the show, right? I'm assuming that God rest her, our grandmother, right, raised y'all in a similar manner to how you raised me and how y'all raised us, right?
No, I was raised very differently than the way I was.
More strict or less strict?
Less strict.
Okay, so less strict. And
I was more loving and less strict and more. More open dialogue with my children.
So you were raised more strict.
Oh yes, definitely.
Right. Okay. You were raised more strict than you raised me.
Yes. With
more of an iron fist, probably more because I said so. All that, right? Regardless, I shouldn't use quantity because I popped out more than both of them out. So, okay. And did that raising, and this is in no way me attacking no one, did that stop you from making mistakes? Did that stop you from, as a child, doing things that were adult things? Did that stop you from premarital sex? Yes.
No.
So then why would you replicate, and I'm not saying you, I'm saying as a generation, why would you then replicate the same method? To speak to Mr. Moore's point, you guys, and when I say you guys now, I'm speaking as a generational construct, right? And this is a lot of us as Black people. You guys were raised a particular way. A lot of if you in my house, you do as I say. If you're a child, you do what a child does, and when you're an adult, you can do it as an adult. Number one, what decides an adult? The reason why Andrew brought that up was because, yes, we live in America where the age of consent is 18, 16, or 17, depending on your state. But in certain cultures, the Jewish people within America, at 13, you're a man and a woman. So that's why he brought that up, to bring out the point. What is an adult? What is the age? What is the marker, right? Because if we treat it biologically, if you can carry child or create life, you should be treated like an adult biologically, right? But we don't do that, absolutely, because at 13, you're not an adult mentally. Am I correct? Right. But I'm saying, listen, just hear me, listen. So the point I'm making is there's no exact metric for adult, which is why we're saying do not treat these matters like adult matters that you have to shield from your children. Introduce them to your children as an adult and have dialogue so that they can handle them when they're an adult. And if they, as a child, decide to enter them, they can, as a child, enter them with adults level knowledge, adults level understanding, and adults level decision making. Because I am a child entering these levels and entering these situations with child's mentality because the adults around me didn't put me on game. Now, if you were raised a particular way and that did not stay away from you making those mistakes or doing those things you should not have done, why would you replicate the same exact methods with your children, expecting that a different result? We all know the definition of insanity. I do gotta quote Einstein. Same thing, expecting different results. If you raise me the way you was raised, the way they was raised, the way they was raised, and everybody who was raised this way, basically from a standpoint, nobody was, oh yeah, we did it perfect. They raised us and we did it perfect. We followed every rule. We got away scot. It was all Gucci. Then why would you expect that method to work with your kids? That's why I'm so excited about our generation, because we're realizing where a lot of the mistakes were made, and we're hopefully going to raise our children differently. I was raised amazing. I got the best mother in the world, and no way am I attacking her. I got the best mother that God ever made. But what I'm saying is, from a generational standpoint, I know there are places where it didn't hit the mark. I'll observe them. Rather than replicate them with my children, I'm going to learn the better method to get the result I want. We are not saying that parents should sit their kids down and say, you can go have sex and smash anything that's walking. That's not the conversation we want. If I am a child, but I can and have access to adult things, which is what we're saying, and we're saying it even younger. Mr. Ernest said 10. Mr. Ernest, okay, just give me one moment. Mr. Ernest said 10. I saw porn at 7. So you're already too late. I done already seen 2 adults have sex, and what I think in my mind is what sex is supposed to look like. But regardless of the age you do it at, the point is, if I am a child and you leave me with child's information and child's understanding, then I get an opportunity to indulge in something adult-like. If you haven't ingrained the fear of God himself into me, then I will hop into it. If I do have that fear of God, I will stay away from it only out of fear, not out of knowledge. And then when I have the opportunity to, either when I leave your home, because now I got my own set of rules, or when I find out that something you told me was bogus, like Shorty you mentioned, then I enter it. But guess what? I still have the child's knowledge. I still have the child's understanding. But the point we're making is the training has missed the mark in some regards.
Nobody's perfect.
We're not saying be perfect. We're saying hear it out.
Let Ernest respond. He's on the phone still. Oh, he dropped off. Okay, go ahead, Ernest.
Wait.
I'm sorry, we dropped you.
So there's a word, there are 2 words that the young people are saying that I have a disagreement with.
Okay.
And that's child and adult. I'm not watching it, so I don't know who keeps saying child. But when you talk about child, children should do children things.
You just said that.
If you're talking about teenagers or young adults, that's a different story. That's
but we're being treated like children.
Different conversation.
But we're being treated like children.
You keep saying child. So when y'all hear you say child, I'm thinking someone who is dependent 100% on their parents.
It's just semantics.
Yes, yes.
Those are semantics that you're fighting over.
I want to make sure that our verbiage is correct. Now,
nothing we said was incorrect.
Yes, we should talk to our children about it. We should educate them. I totally agree. Starting at the age of 10 or whenever their cycles or puberty happens, yes, I agree. But that doesn't mean you need to go out there and do these actions.
We're not saying that.
Ernest,
we're not saying
the
that.
wrong idea. We are not saying
I just said that.
We're not saying that these things should be done by children. That's not what we're saying. What we are saying is the method in which you educate the children at the generations that have happened so far, or lack thereof, has been for the worst. It has messed up not only our perception on it, but by y'all trying to instill fear in us being the only barrier keeping us from whatever it is you're trying to keep us from. Once we pass that fear, there's nothing stopping us from indulging in whatever it is that we're indulging in. And we are going into that, we're going into that with the mentality of a child, the understanding of a child, no knowledge of it at all. The only difference between somebody who has had sex and haven't had sex is the one person knows what it feels like to be inside of another person. That's it. Only.
Let's just say that we don't agree with one another.
I said that last time.
I agree that we should have the conversation.
Yes.
I totally agree we should have the conversation. I agree we should have the conversation as early as when puberty happens. I totally agree with you.
Yes.
My issue, my only point is the actual doing of it, because again, it comes with responsibility that most children, I'm going to repeat, children are not ready for it.
Yes, they agree with you, Ernest. They agree with you on that.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'm glad that we was able to come to a point where we all understand and agree with one another. Our point is that children shouldn't be having sex. Your point is that children shouldn't be having sex. Our point is that adults should be having talks with their children about sex. Your point is that adults should be having talks with their children about sex. We are all in agreement and congruence. Thank you so much for the call in.
You stick around for the rest of the podcast.
Yes. This relationships and dating episode is quickly turned into the generational sex episode. But that's how it is at YSO.
Ernest, thank you so much. What were we saying? Thank you, and we support you. Yes, we do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And you know what? The dialogue, as somebody put up, one of our listeners, I think it was Vincent Cheeks, he said, this is good dialogue. And I think Yvette said it needs to be a part two. This is the dialogue that's needed. We need these open conversations. So thank you so much for calling in. We really appreciate you. Much love to you today. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much again, Mr. Moore. Like I was just saying, this is supposed to be the relationships and dating episode. It's quickly turned into a generational sex episode, which is fine. I did. Maybe I should have did the toe before I go. You know what I mean? I wanted us to get juicy. We got real juicy.
Yeah, y'all did. Real juicy.
The ring lights is being. But I mean, that's what you can expect me to.
We got another call.
Well, we can't dip off that subject real quick. So
no, hold on, Vincent Cheeks. And he's better support him. That's what we have to say. Hey, Vincent. Good evening. Welcome to the YSO podcast. What's going on? Good evening. How you doing?
I'm good. I just wanted to say, man, this is great dialogue. I really like when the children are expressing themselves and defending themselves in a very polite manner.
We appreciate your support and your encouragement, because you know what, they're very passionate, and that's why I give them this platform, because we need to hear, and I think the world is so used to shutting them up until that's why we're getting it all wrong and we're losing them. We gotta be, even if we don't see eye to eye on everything, we gotta be able to hear them and let them hear us. And there are things we can learn from them, and they have to be open to hear and be able to learn from us as well. But we definitely appreciate your support, because we can't do it without the support of the people.
I just want to ask this question.
Okay.
To the panel, because Ernest kept saying about age and what age you should teach a child about these things, about sex and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you saw my earlier comment, but I said I got into porn at 5. So, okay, because I found my daddy's stash and long from there, right? So And I started having sex in the ninth grade. Right? So
Okay.
by the time my mother came to me, when I'm in the 11th grade, trying to have the talk with me, I'm knee deep in the game by
Knee deep. Knee deep.
Talk about it. Knee deep. Both knees.
You was knee deep.
I think when I was young, I was like 6 years.
That's his question. Did y'all hear the question?
What age?
What age?
I got to answer. I don't know if it's the right answer. I'm only 22. I got a lot of living to do. I've done a lot of living, trust me, but I got a lot of living to do. I think that, and maybe some of the rhetoric we've had tonight kind of juxtaposes what I'm about to say. I don't think it should be one conversation. I think that it has to be multiple conversations throughout your child's life and youth. I think anywhere between 5 and 7 is a good point for the first conversation. 5 to 8. I think if your kid's out of elementary school, you're too late. If your kid's out of elementary school, you're too late. By the time I was done with elementary school, I knew that I liked boobs and I knew how to spell it. All I needed was the computer. And I had it whenever I needed to do homework. I'm gonna keep it real with you, Mom. I was doing definitions and looking up boobs in another tab. One eye looking over my shoulder for if Nelly was coming through with her boobs. I swear to God, I'm keeping it
How
up.
come when I was checking that history in the computer, and I said, "Are you looking at this dirty stuff?"
Of course. Oh, I'm supposed to say, oh, yes, Mommy. I'm sorry. I was watching the boys. I lied. Duh. Yes.
I'm appalled.
I'm sorry. I don't know. Like, let's keep it real. I'm an adult now, and even as a teen, me and you's relationship became a lot more transparent. But I think that if your child's out of elementary school, you're too late. I think it's at some point in elementary school.
And as a substitute teacher, when I was substituting in the first grade, these kids have iPhones and they have access to a lot of things.
I was about to say.
Not even like this one young lady, I will never forget this. I'm not gonna say her name, but she was having a conversation. It was her.
I'm gonna call in.
Okay, it was her, and she sits at a table with another girl, a black boy and a white boy. And so I'm helping this other young kid with whatever the subject was. And I turn around and she's giving the boy a massage. I kid you not. She's giving the boy a massage. And I said, "Where did you see that at?" "At home. I saw Mommy give Daddy a massage." And I said, "So why did you feel the need to give him a massage?" And she said out of her mouth, "I wanted to make him feel good."
She didn't know what that means.
6 years old.
She didn't know what that means.
6 years old. She wanted to make him feel good?
And that's the thing. The thing is that she's operating in innocence.
Yeah.
When she says she wants to make him feel good, she really means I want to make him smile. I want to make him happy.
Right.
But we understand, and not to come from a perspective of sexualizing the youth. not to come from a perspective of sexualizing youth, because that is another thing that happens, especially amongst us black youth being homosexualized. But it's also the understanding that the access. The same way, I know so many parents who censor their kids' speech. We don't say lie in this house, shut up. We don't say stupid, right? Because those are bad words. But they pick, and you don't want them to say those words in other environments. But there's other things that they picking up. TV, phone, iPad, iPhone, iPod, the interaction that they see in their own home. I'm gonna keep it G real. The majority of what I know about relationships up until pending came from the main relationship I saw growing up. Right? And for better or worse or in between, that's the majority of us. We at those young ages, we are a reflection of our environment.
We are sponges.
We are sponges. We are soaking it in.
And you're pressed, you ooze out whatever you soaked in.
The thing is, the environment's getting bigger and bigger. Before it was just the village that raised you or just your home.
That's the world.
Now, then it expanded to school because school got such a big point. It expanded to school and your social circle there. Then maybe if you grew up in a church, your social circle there. Now it is literally the world.
What's our say? Don't judge them when it's comfortable. It's not when you adapt to.
It's literally the world.
I was gonna say like the first time I'm gonna teach my child is whenever he receives a device that can surf the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if he can download apps like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, stuff like
YouTube.
that. Because anywhere where it's possible, he could end up down a rabbit hole that he didn't expect.
Yeah.
I'm just off of scrolling. That's when I'm having it. A week after he gets his first tablet, because I'm sure it will happen. Like whether it's a tablet, laptop, if it's something that can surf the web.
Was Hannah calling?
I don't know.
I'm trying to find
Does
out.
she have your number?
I put it out there.
She gonna call Drew.
So that's why everything looking.
Hot loud blinging. You might call you on one.
I wanted Ashton to answer the age question because you brought up the factor that we didn't even tap into, which is being exposed to these things involuntarily. Right. So what do you think is a good age?
I'm so serious because it's so unfortunate that so many men and women that I know were like molested or anything. They get exposed to it at an extremely young age, and then it just distorts their entire worldview of sex as a whole. So I would personally, if I have kids, when they like 4 or 5, I'm gonna at least start teaching them the body parts. It's not bad to say penis. It's not bad to say vagina. Somebody has one or the other. They go inside of each other. It's okay. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. That is how you were made. And I don't think it's wrong to expose your kids to that extremely early because they're gonna learn it at some point anyway. They're not be able to comprehend everything at that moment, but I'm gonna know that I tried to tell them as
which is why I think you have multiple. As they get older and their mind expands, you revisit it again with more information. And then maybe around that preteen pubescent age is when you start to bring in your personal anecdotes and you can speak real about your experiences. But I agree.
Back in my day, and now because of like you said earlier, whatever you experienced and whatever age you experienced it at, subtract 4 or 5 years. We're gonna have to do that. Like
mute the what's the name? All right. So we got Hannah on the phone, but and don't tell her what she was about to be good. I just know. What's up, Hannah? Thank you for calling into the YSO podcast. You now have the floor. Unmute me.
Don't mute your phone.
Yeah, mute the laptop. Hannah, come on.
This is what we was talking about earlier.
Okay. Talk loud.
Yes.
No, but mute the
laptop.
Live stream. You're watching the live stream. Mute it. Hannah.
You ain't been out of school that long now.
Right.
You know how the dudes like how when you're 14, everybody for a child. But then I was like, I feel like you have a loose baby 14, you're not ready for a child. And I feel like you have a loose baby at 30, you're not ready for a child.
That's what I told Emmanuel. I said that you can be you cannot be ready to, or adults cannot be ready to take care of kids if they have them at that age.
You could become a baby mother at 40.
Right. So, yeah, we agree with that.
I didn't hear what she said.
Can you repeat it?
I said I feel that when if you're 14 and you have an oops baby, you're not ready for it. If you're 30 and you have an oops baby, you're still not ready for it because you didn't plan for that. I mean, it's just happened.
Right.
You may not be ready for it at 30, but you are more in a position to possibly.
You know what? Y'all jump all over me when I say something. Let me speak. Go ahead, finish. No, you wasn't. Oops baby anywhere around. Most of us is oops babies. A lot of people did not plan. Some parents did, but
it was a birthday present.
But what I'm saying is that at 14 and 30, most folks is in 2 different places. I would hope and pray, especially with where we are today. A 14-year-old child is still in school. A 30-year-old person is not in school anymore. Hopefully they working
and got some sense and know how to, you know what I'm saying? It's two different. It's back to what Aaron said. It's a child and an adult.
I agree. However, I know 30-year-olds in school right now, and I know 14-year-olds that's not. And to speak to that, the point is that we all have the same level of access or ability to these things.
You realize that?
She said you can have an oops baby at 14, 30. Lord willing, your biological system is right, 55. You can have an oops baby at any of these ages. But yet, if you're 14, you're being taught or exposed to none of the realities of that. Then when you come, we had a whole television show that went on for endless seasons about being a teenage mother. 16 and pregnant and teen mom. What it was before Catfish, it was MTV's biggest franchise of all time. That wasn't a coinky dink. That's because people is out here at 16 smashing, but not having a healthy relationship with sex. They're not understanding and knowing all of the potential consequences. And if they do, they only know it because it's been drilled with fear rather than real information, real knowledge, transparency, and vulnerability, which is what is going to lead to better results.
I feel like it's the same way about how young Christians live their life, like have their Christian walk, especially like if their parents are like in the clergy or in any way. It's pressed that you're supposed to be afraid of God, so you don't do this or you're gonna go to hell. And so like you live your whole life
about being afraid of God.
Yes,
Not about being
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's what we're being taught. Yes. So that's what we're being taught. It's all about being afraid to sin, because if you sin, you're gonna go to hell. And you live your life with that fear, like I don't want to go to hell, so I want to live right.
And what it's all about, it's not about the fear of sin. It's about understanding the relationship that God created you to have with him, so that you can be able to understand who you are in him and realize that your body belongs to him, and that you would hopefully prayerfully come to the place where you have the desire to please him, and therefore reserve your body for when you are able to give it to that person that you marry. Now, everybody does not live by that, but it's not driven by fear.
Listen, Andrew, I got it.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Listen, you are focused on what listen, you right now are speaking the truth. We know that now. We were raised under the fear. Nobody, I didn't listen. Why would you say even that joke is ingrained in the wrong mentality because it don't work. I didn't even understand real rap. I did not understand the concept of us as humans loving God till I was 17. I've been in the church my whole entire life. I've seen people say the phrase, so don't get me wrong, but I never had no one until Deacon Ben actually explained that we are supposed to love the Lord and love each other the way he loves us. I never understood, that never was broken down to me, but I knew about Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, and I knew about this, and I'm supposed to know the story, so I'm like, you know what I mean? Shout out to Genesis, Sarah, and listen, I'm not saying it was in the 16th, 17th. No, it was before. I'm not saying that we're not supposed to know the stories, but so many of us that are grown up in the church are taught that the consequence of sin is hell. So, and you don't want to be there, so don't do it. Why aren't we being taught the love, the mercy, the grace, and that we are supposed to yearn for that? I didn't know about walking in the will of. I didn't know about finding God's will for me and walking in that till I was 14, and we started going to TIC. There are things that you believe you're teaching.
Y'all be falling asleep.
No, bro, don't even try it. I was in church 3 days a week minimum every week of my life.
I have had some very, very, very deep conversations even when we were younger. And I've never raised you on the fear of God.
I'm not saying, Ma, do you think all of my do you think all of my walk with the Lord came from you? Like I didn't go to a church filled with so many other clergy? Like I didn't have a father? Like I don't see other people live in existence? And that's another thing. parents just believe if I never said it or if I never did it, then there's no way they can find out it exists. Which is why so many of them treat sex and so many other taboos, quote unquote, like if I don't bring it up in this house, it doesn't exist. That's not real. We gonna be exposed to these things. I have been in situations where I have been in youth church and I'm asking questions and they took it as me being rebellious or trying to be blasphemous. So they ended it with either you're gonna go to hell or because that's what we do. That's not the right way. We supposed to, the fact that I spent all of my youth in church, but didn't understand so many of these important concepts, and I know I can speak for my generation, until so old is the issue.
Okay, we gotta bring this episode to a close.
So
we gotta end it on Dawn Thompson's last question.
Okay, so
ask the question.
Okay, so Dawn Thompson asks, what's the question?
She said, what do we need to do to encourage our children to wait until marriage?
Right. Have the conversation.
Have the conversation, one, and let them know.
Wait, go ahead, Hannah, my bad.
Go to the mic. Right? And I feel like, I guess it's like, because like, well, me personally, I don't like when people preach to me 24/7 when I'm talking to you about a situation or like we're speaking on real life stuff. You know, I'm not saying it's not real life, it's real life. But I don't want to hear about, like pray about it and all this other stuff. Like, because realistically, some of us, you might not want to do it, So it's just like, me praying about it, it's like, well, I'm praying about this, But I just feel like, you could talk to them about, the conversation about like, wait until marriage, all the other stuff is good to talk about, and some people live up to that. But you can't. I feel like, for example, I feel like my mom, when she talked to me about that when I was younger, I felt like she thought, she's going to not have sex before marriage and everything. And it's like you can't. I feel like you can't just believe that in your head all throughout your child's life because, like y'all said, we are exposed to so many different things in this day and age.
Yeah. That's one thing my dad said. He raised me and my brother as sinners.
Well, he didn't raise us as sinners. He let us make. That's what he said.
That's exactly what he says. We raised our kids as sinners.
He let us make our own decisions.
The reason he says that is because he doesn't want to raise you as the type of parent that's like, oh, my child will never do that.
Yeah.
Or my child, he's gonna raise you understanding that you are apt to do those things.
Apt to do anything. We gonna all answer the question and we gonna wrap up.
So I'll go first. I think to answer your question, I'm thinking as a parent now. If I want to encourage my child to wait till marriage to have sex, I have the conversation with them. As Emmanuel said, I have it often, early and often, because I feel like if they know what it is and they know the consequences of their actions and what they can contract or what can happen, then I don't want to scare them into not having sex, but I want to educate them into not having sex before marriage.
I'm gonna just give them my experiences. The experiences, the negative experiences and the positive, but I'm gonna start with the negative and be like, look, it might be cool, but she gonna show up to your crib and slash your tires on me, so you might not want that to happen.
What?
That ain't never happened to me. I'm just saying.
You can't
give I'm not saying it. It possibly could happen. I'm a rapper, bro. You never know.
Okay.
You never know.
Answer the mine and
I would just say I wouldn't even stress so much the fact of it being marriage, even though that is a very important factor. I would tell them to focus on the love that they have with that person, the love that person has for them. Because I think that that's the most important part. And I feel like I would just, whether it's my son or daughter, if they love you, they will wait for you. It's as simple as that.
My answer is probably the answer most parents don't want to hear, but I'm gonna keep it real. 2 versions. Gotta keep it 2 versions. I don't want to say the only, but I think the method that probably would yield the best results or the most common success is genuinely explaining to your children the beauty of sex. How it is literally outside of true love, it's the second best. Like really letting your kid know how amazing it feels, how fulfilling it can be, like truly, and then explaining to them that something that beautiful should only exist in marriage.
Ooh, wait.
If I look, I don't understand.
Is that us?
If I don't hold sex with some level of esteem, if I don't hold sex with some level of esteem and hold marriage with that same esteem and see them in similar likes, the likelihood of me having sex outside of marriage increases. If I have a true knowledge and if I really feel like I understand and experience the levity and the wonder and the beauty and the reason why the Lord ordained sex for marriage, then I'm likely to pop out and do it whenever. But and now so many parents are probably going to be like, well, if I explain all that, that's going to make them want to do it. But if you really like, and we about to get off anyway. But so yeah. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the YSO podcast. We're gonna go through our socials and then I'm gonna outro and do that. So everybody,
What are we doing?
Socials, what?
On IG, you can _CB03. On Twitter, it's at Coach_Buck03, and on Facebook it is my first and last name, Christian Buckmeyer. If you don't know how to spell it, but now Google it. Straight like that.
You guys can follow me on Instagram at Ashton Gates with 2 S's at the end, and on Twitter at Ash Gets the News.
You can follow me at _skip to my shoe. Same place that you can always follow me at. I ain't changing.
And please follow the YSO podcast. You speak out podcast on Instagram at YSO podcast and on Twitter at _YSO podcast. I believe it's YSO podcast YSO _podcast or either _YSO podcast. I can't remember which one, but follow us. And From Pain to Purpose, follow our YouTube channel, From Pain to Purpose, Inc. And you will find all of our live streams there. And you can also follow us on Healing Pain Through the Arts on our Facebook group. All of the live streams are there. And then From Pain to Purpose Facebook page. And you can follow me, Amber Ann Lyons, on Facebook. And you can follow me on Instagram at NzingaL, NzinghAL, or Amber Lyons on Instagram. So if you want to be a part of our broadcast, if you would like to help us, and as you can see, there are many moving parts to our broadcast. And as you can see, sometimes, technical difficulties may be a challenge, but we persevere and push through. We have a lot of stuff going on here, technical, things happening. And
somebody just bless us with a camera crew.
Yeah, we need a camera crew. We need a camera crew. And please purchase our t-shirts. You can hit us up at on any of our social media, or hit us up at youthspeakoutpodcast@gmail.com. Order your t-shirts, donate to us, help us with this cause. As you can see, that we're really doing a great work in the community. We're trying to have responsible media. And we received a wonderful compliment from someone in media that we are doing really responsible media, and our platform is amazing. And we just thank God for that. So thank you for everyone that tunes in every 2 weeks, and we appreciate you. We would normally close out with our outro, but
No, I didn't even give my social media.
Okay, but we would normally close out with our outro, but because our system is down, I'll have to walk over there and do it. So go ahead, Sadie.
You can follow me on Instagram at the Even Saint or at Lions_Emmanuel_. You can find me on Facebook at Saint Even. You can find me on Twitter at RIP Lions. You can find and stream and download any of my music on anywhere you can listen to music. Just search Saint Even. Is there anything else that I
Part
have?
2.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Part 2.
This wasn't even.
Absolutely. All we talked about was sex and generations. So we will absolutely have a part 2 of relationships and dating here at the YSL podcast. This is the Youth Speak Out podcast, the podcast by the youth for the youth, being the voice of the youth, so the voice can be to the youth. Thank you for joining us, and see you in 2 weeks at 7:30. We out.
Fucking get over. Just end it? Okay. Good night.
Thank you, Hannah.
Why is it not ending?
Are we still live?
Yeah, hold on.